Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our weekly webinar. So today our talk will be quiet but super effective introvert in the workplace. This is presented by Reveres Academy and the Cambodia Chamber of Commerce and curated by Up Your Games 2016. So, for our webinar, you can find us on our social media under Reveres Academy from our website, our Facebook, YouTube, or Telegram. So you can join us to see what's our previous webinar and our upcoming webinar also. So for today, what is the learning outcome? Participants will learn how to identify the introvert in your company, and understand how to engage them, and also bring up the best of the introvert in your company, and increase the productivity by implementing the simple system. Let us welcome Mr. Remus Zhong to actually to give us the thinking of it. Yeah, Remus, hand over to you. Thank you.
អរគុណជំរាបសួរខ្ញុំឈ្មោះ Remus ខ្ញុំមកពីសិង្ហបុរីសុខសប្បាយទេ and that's all the Khmer I know. Unfortunately, I learned that for about a week, so I'm very glad to have all of you here this morning. Thank you for joining us. Let me show you. Oh, I need to share my screen. Sorry. Let me show you what I have. Yes. So today's topic is about introverts in the workplace. So some of us are, well, I guess some people would call us quiet, but there's a little bit more to it than that. So let me get to it. Let me give you a quick introduction. This is me. This is my name. I'm Remus. My surname is Zhong, and I'm an educator, I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, and a consultant. And I've been to Cambodia a few times, so these are some of the pictures I took while I was there. And while I was there was this particular dish that I really like, and I hope I'm saying it correctly, samlo machu mon. So it was something I've never had before. I actually ordered it by accident, and it turned out that, oh, actually it's very nice. And what happened after that was I returned to the same place. It was Hang Bai, and I ordered it about maybe 5 or 6 more times before I left Cambodia. So I went to Phnom Penh, I went to Tak Mau, and I went to Kampot. So 3 places over 2 years, something like 2 years. I went there about 3 times. While I was there, this is actually some of the things that we did. I worked with the Anglican Church, and we were actually teaching English lessons to the students there. And so the children are somewhere between, if I'm not wrong, somewhere between 5 years to 9 or 10 years old. So we are teaching them basic English so that they can improve themselves. They can, learn the language, and perhaps in the future, as they get better and better, they can find better jobs, because a lot of jobs nowadays, they require a certain amount of English and perhaps to some extent Chinese as well. So this is what we were doing there. And of course, we were also in some of the marketplaces. We went to one of the craft and food festivals, the Khmer crafts and food festivals. We went to see some of the merchants, talk to them, see what they, what life is like in Cambodia. I think when you talk to the merchants, they can give you a pretty good idea. We also went to some of the salt farms. We bought some salt, and because we were in Kampot, of course, Kampot has pepper, and so I have 2 bags of pepper at home right now. I'm still using it because I think I bought a little bit too much. So yeah, so these are the things that I did while I was there. I also met a friend. This friend I've met. He actually came to Singapore. He's a gem merchant. So actually, one of my side businesses is to deal with gemstones, and some of the stones only Cambodia has, right? You have the blue zircon, and blue zircon is only found in Cambodia. So I actually bought quite a lot of it from him, and we also made rings. We also met some silver people who work with silversmiths. And the silversmiths are the ones who make the rings that you see on the screen there. So very well made, good quality silver. And yeah, so our customers are very happy. But because of COVID, a lot of the businesses are not working right now. So unfortunately, this gem business is taking a break. And this is what I do on a daily basis. I do a lot of teaching, I do training, I do speaking, consulting, and these are some of the events that I've spoken at. Oh yes, while I was in Cambodia, I was doing teacher training as well. So I was training some of the teachers. And yes, the photographs, a lot of them are taken by me. I do a bit of photography myself. So that's me. I told you that I'm an author. This is the book that I wrote. It's called The Introvert Teacher. So, I actually have one. So this is what the book looks like. Yeah, so this book is about introverts, which is part of the topic of what we are talking about today. And introverts have a certain definition, which I will go through in a little bit. So apart from writing, these are some of the courses that I run: introvert communications, introverts in the gig economy. I think the gig economy is an up and rising thing. So I think it's worth talking about, and that's why I sort of champion the cause of the gig economy. And of course, the introvert friendly workplace. A little bit of the information is what we are going to be covering today. So sit tight, we're going to get to that. And something called 4D your message, talking about communications, how to get your message from your head and put it into the heads of other people. So, all right, enough about me. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So in most of a lot of what we see today, there's a movement among people, and one of them is the introvert movement. People are getting more aware about who the introverts are, what they do, how they behave, and what are the contributions they can make to society at large. So let's talk about what introversion is not. A lot of people think that introverts are shy, but introverts don't have to be shy. Shyness is quite a different thing altogether. So shyness is about fear. If you are shy, it's usually because you are afraid of being rejected. And if you are afraid of being rejected, you may not want to talk to new people. But you see, an introvert is a little bit different. An introvert might not talk to the person, not because he's afraid of being rejected, but it could simply be that the person has no energy. The introvert has no energy that day. And so he can't make a good conversation, can't create a good conversation, and therefore he doesn't speak to the new person. A lot of people also think that introverts are antisocial, meaning that they don't like to be with people, they don't like to hang out, they don't like to go to parties and so on. But of course, this is not true. Introverts are not antisocial. We like people, but we like them in smaller amounts. We don't like to have too many people at once, right? So we're not antisocial. And some people also think, oh, because the introverts don't talk, that means they are arrogant, they are proud. But introverts are not arrogant. It's just that sometimes, in fact, a lot of the times, we don't have anything important to say, and therefore we don't say anything. So it's not that we don't want to say, or we have something and we want to keep it from others. It's just that, well, we don't want to say anything at the moment. And most importantly, people think that introverts are quiet, but introverts are not always quiet. And you can see this in a lot of introvert speakers, such as myself, right? I'm speaking now. I'm not quiet. I'm speaking up. So introverts are not always quiet. So what is an introvert exactly? An introvert is a preference. So introverts have a certain preference. They like certain things. They don't like certain things, but they can change, right? People are adaptable. They can change themselves. So what is this thing that they like? Right? They need to have their energy renewed, so they get their energy back by being on their own. So if you put an introvert in a quiet place where this introvert can be on his own or her own, this introvert will regain energy. But if you put the introvert in a crowded place with a lot of people where they have to talk, where they have to listen to other people talk, then they lose energy. So that's all an introvert is. It's about the energy. With people, they lose energy, and on their own, they gain energy. So that's what an introvert is. So introverts have certain characteristics. They tend to be more reserved. So you will see a lot of the time that introverts, their facial expression, they don't smile a lot, they don't laugh a lot, they often don't show a lot because they are more reserved. They don't show their feelings all the time. But of course, there are those who do. So this is just a tendency, common, but not always true. They also prefer activities with fewer people. If they go for a meeting, they will prefer the meeting to have maybe 2 or 3 people instead of a meeting with 5, 6, maybe 10, 20 people, which they may find very overwhelming. Too many people. So they like smaller gatherings, smaller activities. And introverts tend to need to prepare. So they like to take a bit of time to think about what they want to say before they do anything. They want to prepare first. They want to check. They want to do research. They want to be sure that they know what they are going to say before they say something. So introverts, of course, we would say something like an opposite, but they're not really an opposite, right? The opposite is an extrovert. So introverts and extroverts are both preferences, and they are based on how they renew their energy. And introverts renew their energy by being on their own. Extroverts renew their energy by being with other people. So when extroverts have people around them, they get more and more energetic. But when introverts have people around them, they get less and less energetic, so less energy. So let's talk about extroverts. Extroverts, a lot of people think, oh, they're confident people, but extroverts are not always confident, right? There are extroverts who suffer from self-esteem issues. They're not confident of themselves. They are not sure of themselves, but they like being around people. So it doesn't mean that just because you like being around people means that you know how to deal with them. So that's the issue of confidence, right? We call them social butterflies. That means they go from one meeting to another meeting, one group to another group, and they can just talk to this group, and then they can just talk to another group, and they talk to another group, and everything they talk about is not very deep. So that's what some people think extroverts are. But extroverts are not social butterflies, right? They don't have to be. They can be, but they are not always. And a lot of people think, oh, this person is very friendly. That means this person must be an extrovert. But again, that is not true because there are also friendly introverts. I'm sure you know introverts who are friendly, right? So friendliness is not an extrovert trait. And most importantly, the opposite of quiet is loud, right? A lot of people think extroverts are loud, but an extrovert doesn't have to be loud. An extrovert can be quiet. They know when to be quiet. For example, if an extrovert knows that if your friend is an extrovert and he knows that you need some time on your own, he'll know not to talk when you need that quiet time. So extroverts aren't always loud. So extroverts also have a preference, and their preference is to renew their energy by being around other people. So extroverts get their energy by being around people, and introverts get their energy from being on their own. That's the main difference. So there are some characteristics as well of extroverts, and extroverts do tend to be more outgoing. They start conversations more easily. So if you have 5, 10 strangers in a group, it's very likely that the first person to start talking, usually it's the extroverts. Not always, but usually it is. So they're more outgoing. They express themselves more. And they also prefer activities with more people because remember, extroverts get their energy from being around people. So if they're around people and they have more energy, it stands to reason that they want to be in activities that have more people, larger events. So you will find that your extrovert friends or your extrovert colleagues are always asking, oh, can we invite more people? So let's say you invite him to lunch and he says, oh, can I also invite this other person? Can I also invite that other person? So it's not that the person doesn't want to talk to you. It's not that your extrovert friend doesn't want to talk to you. It's just that your extrovert friend likes to be around more people, even though you may not, if you are an introvert. So extroverts, because of these things that they prefer, they like careers that are people facing. So they get to meet people, they get to see people all the time. And of course, they need some downtime as well, but they would like careers where they are not just stuck in an office or stuck in a lab and doing only solo things that they do on their own. They would like careers where people are around them or they can talk to people. So of course, during this COVID-19 period where a lot of people have to stay at home, I have a lot of extrovert friends and they are not very happy because they don't get to go out, they don't get to meet people, they feel very low energy. But once they get to go out, they are very happy because there are people around them, they get to talk, they get to express themselves, and that's what they like. Okay, so that's the difference between introverts and extroverts. So does that mean that if you work in a lab, you're a scientist, you can't be an extrovert? Of course not, right? Does that mean that if you're a performer, if you are an actor or an actress, you can't be an introvert because acting requires you to express yourself? And so this is of course not true because we have some very famous introvert performers such as Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts is an introvert. Johnny Depp, you might be familiar. Okay, most people are familiar with Johnny Depp. Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is also an introvert. Ryan Gosling is also an introvert. And Emma Watson, if you watch Harry Potter, you are familiar with the Harry Potter series. Emma Watson is Hermione. And Emma Watson is an introvert. She has said so herself. And she's still a performer. She's a very successful performer. So it's not only extroverts who make good performers. A lot of performers are actually introverts. Now, this is because there's something that we call trait theory, right? And in trait theory, there is a biological, that means it's natural, it's part of who we are, and there's a cultural preference. So if you look at this picture here, what you're seeing here is during the World Cup, and these are Japanese fans. They watch the World Cup, and the very interesting thing about the Japanese is that after they finished watching the World Cup, after the match is over, they actually stayed back and picked up all the rubbish. So they have these large plastic bags. They picked up all the rubbish, threw the rubbish away, even though they didn't have to. And this is just part of who they are. This is part of their culture. Right? The Japanese have this culture in them. And this was actually in the news. And people were actually very surprised. A lot of cultures around the world were very surprised that, oh, why would the Japanese do that? And of course, some Japanese people came up and said that, oh, this is just part of their culture. And so this is their trait, this is their characteristic, their preference. They tend to do this because their culture does it. It's just part of who they are, right? So if you look at this screen here and you look closely, you will notice something very interesting as well. You will notice that the Japanese, again, have, when they place their dots, this is like a voting system, right? And if you look at all the other countries, the dots are just placed all over the place. Right, all over the place. Even Singapore is there as well, and we just place our dots all over the place. So, but if you look at Japan, nobody told them that they have to place the dots in a row, but they do it anyway because it's part of who they are. It's part of their culture. The Japanese culture is very structured. It's very polite. That's who they are, and they want to make things easy for other people. So they think about, basically it's society first, right? So they know that if they place their dots neatly in a row, it helps the next person to place their dots neatly in a row, and they can save space. It's more organized. Everyone prefers it that way. So that's the way I suppose that's the way the culture is. And of course, sometimes culture leads to stereotypes, and this was quite common at one time, right? The stereotype simply is that Asians are very good at mathematics. And because Asians are very good at mathematics, obviously, sometimes they don't need calculators, they can just do the calculations in their heads. Right? So it's a stereotype, but yes, a lot of Asians are very good at mathematics. It doesn't mean that other cultures are not. It just so happens that the stereotype has landed on the Asians. And this is also a stereotype. So some people might be looking at this and wondering what the stereotype is. The stereotype is simply that women do tend to think a lot more than men. So they have a lot of thoughts running through their heads. And so it seems that women tend to stay up at night because they're thinking about things. But men, maybe they just don't care. You know, they just don't care and they just go to sleep. And that's why they're not bothered. And so a lot of the time, women wonder why men can not care. But men, at the same time, a lot of them think, why do women care so much? Why can't you just ignore it? But that's just the way we are, right? That's just the way a lot of us are. Not every woman is like that, not every man is like that, but the traits are there, right? The tendency, the preference is there. And so that's what trait theory is. We all have certain preferences, we all have certain tendencies, and they show in our behaviors. So there is this thing called free trait theory. And what it means is that if you strongly care about something, you are passionate about something, that means for you, even though you have some natural preferences, you are able to go past those natural preferences and you will take on preferences or traits that help your cause. So for example, if you are very passionate about taking care of animals, you love animals, but maybe you're an introvert. But because you care about the animals so much, you care about taking care of people taking care of animals so much, you may end up becoming like this person that you see in the picture. They might demonstrate, they might go on the streets and, you know, they might maybe not rebel, but they might demonstrate. They might say, hey, we should take care of animals. The world should take care of animals. And they take on what we might see as extrovert preferences. But they are introverts. They are still introverts. It's just that because this is something that they care about, they take on extrovert preferences. And for that moment, they look like extroverts because those characteristics, those traits are usually assigned, they are usually associated with extroverts. So extroverts are normally like that, but introverts can be too, because we can go past our what is natural and take on something else. We are adaptable. We are all human. Humans are adaptable. So if you look at this picture here, this was taken from a movie, and I'll give you a second to look at the picture. And what you are seeing here is a mother holding the knife against a policeman's neck. And the reason, of course, if you look at where the policeman is pointing his gun is pointed at the boy below, right? And so I think you've probably figured it out by now that the boy is probably the woman's son. That's the mother. And the mother is threatening a police officer, even though there are guns all pointed at her. Right? So all the guns are pointed at the mother, but she's still doing it because she loves her son. And because she loves her son, she doesn't care that her life is in danger. She doesn't care that she may die as long as she can save her son. Right? And that is something that that speaks to the trait theory. Perhaps she normally isn't like this, but to protect her son, to take care of her son, she's willing to do something that she normally would not do. It's the same thing with introverts and extroverts. If you care about something enough, you will be able to do something that normally you are not able to do. Right? And so in sales, we often say that salespeople need to be outgoing. They need to be extroverts, but that's not true. I know a lot of introvert salespeople. They are doing very well because they are very good at one-on-one. When they meet their clients one-on-one, they are able to win them over. And so they actually do very well in sales. Similarly, for corporate communications require them to speak to people, to work in a team, to work in large groups, to bring a lot of people together. And so you have corporate communications where introverts also do very well. I know people who are introverts and they are doing very well in the corporate communications. Oh, I see someone has raised their hand. How do we see? Do you have a question? If you have a question, could we hold on for a second. Maybe write the question down, and then we'll do question and answer later on. Okay? Because
I think they can post it in the Q&A for the questions. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yes, perhaps write it in the Q&A, and then we'll get to the question soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So apart from corporate communications, we also have, oops, hang on. Teaching. A lot of people think that teachers have to be extroverts, right? They have to be on the ball all the time. Their class has to be participating, engaging all the time. But that's not always true. There are a lot of teachers who are introverts. I am a teacher who is an introvert. I teach science, and I am an introvert, and I still teach it. I've been teaching for 15 years. So it doesn't mean that just because you're an introvert, you can't be in sales, you can't be in corporate communications, you can't teach. You can, because if you care about those things, those are the things that you want to do, that you believe that you have to do, you will find a way to do them, and you will end up doing it very well. So we are all on this spectrum, right? We are all on a spectrum. It's not necessarily 1 to 10. It could be the other way around. It could be 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000. But the thing here is we are all on a spectrum, and very few people are at one end, and very few people are at the other end. Right? We are all somewhere in the middle, and the question is, where exactly are you? Are you a little bit more to the left? Are you a little bit more to the right? So it depends. It depends a lot on who you are, where you are in your life. Over the course of your life, you may find that you start to change your position on the introvert extrovert spectrum. So you might be very introverted when you are very young, but as you become older, you might become slightly less introverted. You may not become an extrovert. In fact, it's very unlikely. Introverts don't usually become extrovert. They usually just move along the line. And so that's usually what happens to most people. So wherever you are on the line, you can actually find out. You could go online, take personality tests, and find out where exactly you are. And actually, it would be good if you have, if you do this for your staff. Right? If your staff take personality tests and you know what their personalities are like, it's easier to communicate with them. So the quickest way to identify an introvert or an extrovert is this. Listen to what they are saying. Okay, so let me give you an example. So normally I use a video, but I figured that it might be a little bit of time wasted changing from video to back to the screen. So I'm just going to demonstrate it myself. All right. So let's say this is an example. So let's say I'm taking the voice of Tom, and hello, I am Tom. I work in a bank. I play football with my friends on weekends. So that's Tom. Hello, I'm Jason. I'm a scientist. I love painting and photography. So between the two of them, between Tom and Jason, who do you think is the introvert? Perhaps you could type in the chat. I'm not sure whether it will go through. Okay, I have someone who says that they think that Jason is the introvert. Okay, yes, I do hear this a lot. And why do you think Jason is the introvert? If you could give me a guess, why do you think Jason is the introvert in this case? Oops, sorry. Okay, so if we look at what if we look at what Tom said, Tom says that he works in a bank and he plays football with his friends on the weekends, right? And Jason says, oh, I am a scientist. I love painting and photography. So a lot of the times, yes, a lot of the times people look at the work and say, oh, this person is a scientist. So scientists have to work in a lab. And if a scientist works in a lab, usually they are quieter and they are probably introverts. And we also often think that painting is that because we usually paint on our own, we don't have three people painting the same painting, right? So a lot of people think, oh, because painting is a personal hobby, they don't usually share it with others. And photography is also a personal hobby. They think that people like that are usually introverts. So if I were, let me dispel the myth for you. Now, if you listen, let me say it again. Hello, I am Tom. I work in a bank. I play football with my friends on the weekend. And hello, I'm Jason. I'm a scientist. I love painting and photography. So if you were to listen, not so much what they say, but how they say it, you'll realize that when I use Jason's voice, Jason speaks faster. And it's not about how fast they speak, it's about the gap between their sentences. So extroverts tend to have a smaller gap, such as, hello, I'm Jason, I'm a scientist. So notice that the gap between I am Jason and I'm a scientist is very short. But for introverts, they tend to have longer gaps. So it will be something like, hello, I'm Tom. I work in a bank. So you notice that it's slightly longer. It's not much longer, but it is slightly longer. It's not about how fast they speak, it's the gap between the sentences. So you will find this in your colleagues, your friends as well. The introverts that you know, when they speak, their gaps are a little bit longer. When the extroverts speak, the gaps are a little bit shorter. Okay? And so I have a little theory. I don't think it's not a scientific theory. It's just what I think it is. So if you look at it, now an extrovert sometimes looks like this, right? They are about to say something. So they speak with their heart. They speak with their heart. And when they speak, it goes from their heart and it comes out of their mouths directly. Now an introvert also speaks with their heart. There is a slight difference though. An introvert, when they speak, the words go to their heads and then it comes out of their mouths. Right? They like to think about what they are going to say before they say it. And because it takes a little bit of time to think, that's the little gap that you notice. And so extroverts, I'm not saying that extroverts don't think before they speak. It's just that they spend less time thinking about what they say. So they usually just speak, they express. And when they express, they hear it and then they process it. This is how a lot of extroverts work. I've spoken to a lot of extroverts. They tell me that this is quite accurate. When they want to think, they like to speak. They think out loud. So when they speak, they hear, they process, right? But introverts are a bit different. They want to speak, they process, and then they speak. So this takes a little bit more time, right? It goes up and then it comes out. So a little bit more time, and that's sometimes why you have the gap. So that's my theory. I don't think it's a scientific theory, but I think it works. It helps to explain to a lot of people what exactly the differences are. Right. So what can introverts do for your company? So I've been talking about introverts, I've been talking about extroverts. What can they do for your company? How can they help you? Now, I need you to realize that about 50%, half of any group of people are introverts. So that means your staff in your workplace, about half of them are introverts. Not all the time, it depends on the industry, but typically about 30% to 60% or so are introverts. And so you will notice that your staff have these characteristics. They behave like that. When you have meetings, they are quiet, or most of the time they are quiet. They prefer to keep to themselves. So when they do work, they like to do their own work. Right? They don't like to be disturbed. They just want to do their work and then they submit their work. They don't want to talk in between their work. They just want to focus. And sometimes they just disappear for a short period of time. So usually they'll go to the toilet, they'll go take a walk. They're just not there all the time. Sometimes they just take a break. They disappear sometimes. Or sometimes they may tell you, instead of calling me, could you text me? Could you text me on the phone or could you email me? So they prefer text, they prefer email over phone calls. And a lot of the time, you will notice that they are deep in thought, they're thinking. Maybe they're just sitting there, but they're not doing anything. They are just sitting there and maybe they are, their eyebrows are a bit furrowed and they are thinking about something. So you find them doing this quite a lot. And sometimes they like to have lunch on their own. Not because they have no friends, they have friends, but sometimes they just need to have lunch on their own. They just go for lunch on their own, or they buy lunch and they eat at their desks for lunchtime. And they just want to take a break. They'll tell you, oh, I just need a break. I just want to be on my own for a while. So if you have staff who have these characteristics, who behave in these ways, they are perhaps introverts. Not necessarily, but they probably are. If they have all of the 6 of them, I'm quite sure that they are. Okay? So the introverts on your team, what they are very good at is to give you insights. Right? They are very good at observation. They are very good at analysis. They are very good at deduction. And they are also very good at coming up with ideas and solutions. And so if you have their insights, right, if they are so perceptive, they have good insights, you can make very good plans. So the introverts on your team can help to make your plans better because they can see things that a lot of other people do not see. And so your plans are better, your business will definitely be better. Right? And because they have very good ideas, they come up with brilliant ideas, they come up with great solutions. Often you are able to have innovation in your team, innovations in your company, new ways. When we talk about innovations, we are just speaking of new ways to do things. So if they come up with a great idea to do things in a different way, perhaps your marketing, they can come up with a good idea. They notice something and then they tell you, oh, why don't we try this for our marketing? And if you try it, perhaps it will go very well. So if you're willing to try their new ideas, you will find that your company is able to keep up with the times because you will be able to innovate, to do new things. And of course, because you do new things, you'll probably make more money. Now, introverts are also very willing to do things that they love. And if they love the thing that they do it 100%. And they are very good at one-on-one situations. So they may not be good at large group settings. So introverts may not be good at 10 people meetings, but when you're meeting them one-on-one, they are very good at that. And so if they have a lot of passion and they really love what they are doing, they will take care of your customers, right? You have an excellent service because they love what they are doing. They love the people that they are working with, and they will treat your customers well. All right. And because they are so good at one-on-one meetings, you are actually able to have higher sales because when they meet their customers one-on-one, they are able to convince them, they are able to win them over, and therefore you have higher sales. I'm very sorry. There's someone at my door. So if you can give me 1 minute, I'll be right back. I need to answer the door. Sorry, I had someone at the door, so I had to answer. Let's get back to this. And yeah, so I was saying that if the introvert staff in your company are very good at one-on-one meetings and they meet your clients, they can win them over more easily. And you have clients who are happy, I'm sure that the clients will be more willing to spend money with you, right? So higher sales, better partnerships, and the introverts can help you to do that. So imagine all these things, right? You have better plans, you have better service, you have innovation, you have higher sales, you have better partnerships. These are all the things that the introverts can do for you. And the thing is, a lot of the time, we don't notice that they do this because they are quiet. They don't say much. They don't talk much. And so they kind of fade into the background. And it's very easy to forget people who are in the background. It's very easy to notice the people who are talking. It's very easy to notice the people who are, they're doing a lot of things. But it's very easy to forget the people who are not doing those things. And so if you want to get the best out of the introverts in your company, or if you are an introvert and you want to get the best of yourself, perhaps these are things that you can tell the people around you, right? The first thing about getting good responses from introverts is to have recharge points. So what I mean by this is a place, not necessarily a library, but a place where they can sit, where they can think, where they can be on their own. There is a lot of open concept offices nowadays. And the problem with open concept offices is that there's very little privacy. And there's a lot of distraction because you can hear what everyone is saying. And if you hear what everyone is saying, then you can't concentrate, or at least an introvert can't concentrate. I know I can't. So if I were to work in a noisy place, I cannot concentrate at all. I can't think. I can't think effectively. So you need a quiet place for the introverts. It could just be a room, a small room, or a corner in your office where they can just sit and just think about it. Or it could just be somewhere outside the office, right? If your office is very crowded, perhaps somewhere outside of it where you put a few chairs and the introverts can just, if they need a moment to think, they can go out there and think. Right. Of course, some places provide cafes and coffee. And if you have places like this nearby, perhaps you can allow your staff to go to these places to have their meetings or to do their work. Right. When I was in Phnom Penh, I did spend quite a lot of time in the cafes. The coffee is very good. You have very good coffee in Cambodia, and because I was in those places, most of the time they're quite quiet. And I also see a lot of people, a lot of locals, a lot of Cambodians, they are working in the cafes. So perhaps that's something that your company can consider, to have meetings in places like this. And finally, of course, introverts like to sometimes go to the toilet, and the toilet, they'll just close the door. And when they close the door, they will, finally, I have a break. So if you're an extrovert, I don't think you'll understand what it feels like, but introverts really like it when they can just shut the door and just have a quiet moment on their own. It doesn't have to be a toilet, it can be a room, but the thing is, because it's a company, they can't just go to any room and shut the door. So if you are able to give them the space, a small space, it doesn't have to be a large space, a small space where they can just shut the door and tune out the world. You give them a little bit of time to think, they'll be able to come back and they'll be able to contribute more. Right, so tips on interacting with introverts. Listen and think before you speak. So before you say anything, listen to them first, listen to what they are saying, listen to what they are not saying, and then think about what you want to say, then say it. So what this does is it actually slows down your speaking. Because you need to think, you will slow down automatically. And because you slow down, the introverts are able to keep up. So a lot of introverts actually find listening to extroverts very tiring, because the extroverts speak and then the gaps in the sentences are so short, and then they say something else. They don't have time to process the things that were just said. And because they don't have time to process it, they can't process what comes after that. So just think a little while, listen, and then speak. So you slow down. Introverts don't like small talk. Small talk would be, oh, how is your day? How are you? Things that are not important, right? So introverts don't really like that. They just like to get to the point. If you want to ask them a question, just ask them the question. Get to the point. Just go straight and just ask them. Right? So cut the small talk. Ask them for their preferences. So what do I mean by preferences? One example could be this. Now, a lot of extroverts like to get things done quickly. So they want to get things done quickly, they call. They make a phone call, right? They'll say, oh, can you please call us? Can you please call me? And can you please call now? But the problem is a lot of introverts don't like to speak on the phone because they need to think very fast when they're on the phone, and they can't see you. They would prefer to see you face to face if you need to have an important meeting. So they would prefer not to do it over the phone. In fact, many introverts like to do texting, messaging, right? They will prefer to say, oh, can you please message me? Can you please write it on a note and send it to me? Can you email me? So if you're going to ask the introverts in your company to contribute, to give you ideas or to answer a question, it might actually help if you were to message them, write it down on a note and put it on their table, or just email them. Because they have time to think, they'll be able to process it a lot faster. Right. So other tips on interacting with introverts would be something like this. Respect their space and their privacy. So if they have their own space, don't just walk into their space. Don't just walk into their space and start talking to them. They don't like it. So if you want to speak to them, give them a little space. Maybe wave to them first, or maybe knock, right? Knock on the, I don't know, if you have cubicles, maybe knock on the cubicle lightly, gently, and ask them, is it a good time to talk? So if it's not a good time to talk, they'll tell you because you asked. If you just knock and then walk in, it's the same thing, right? There's no difference. So give them a little bit of space, give them a little bit of privacy. They are willing to talk to you, but they need to have that space. They have to come to you. Think of introverts like a cat, all right? If you pull a cat to you, the cat will run away. Cats don't like to be pulled towards them. But if you just sit there and invite the cat, a lot of the time the cat will come to you, right? So this is so that's why a lot of people say introverts like cats and extroverts like dogs, right? Sometimes it's true, because I like cats, because cats are not demanding all the time. Cats just sit there, and then when they want to, they'll come to you. So I feel personally that a lot of introverts are like cats. They just want their space, right? And if you want them to come to you, invite them. And most of the time they will come to you, all right? So respect their space and privacy. And also, go somewhere quiet. If you want to talk to them, maybe not in a crowded place. Just maybe go outside, right? Take a walk. While walking with them, discuss with them what you want to say. So because it's quieter, they are able to process more, they're able to think more, and they'll be able to give you better answers. So go somewhere quiet for your discussions or for your meetings. Now, this is, I feel, quite important. Invite them, but let them say no. Let them decline. So if you invite them, you also, sometimes they feel that they have to say yes. For example, if their boss invites them, they feel that they cannot say no. But if the boss were to say, oh, I would like you to come, but it's okay if you are busy. You can do your work and we'll meet another time. So if they have the option of saying no, they'll be more comfortable. In fact, most of the time, if you give them the option of saying no, they will say yes, because they don't feel forced. And if they don't feel forced, they are more likely to agree with what you want them to do. So give them the option, give them the opportunity to say no. I am busy, or I have something on, I cannot be there, or something like that. So give them the opportunity to say no. And speak slower, speak more calmly, perhaps less emotion, I can say. So if you want to tell them something, just speak slowly. And if you speak slowly, generally you'll become more calm. Okay? Give them time to respond. So sometimes when you tell them something, and you'll notice that, so let's say, so imagine I'm looking at you, right? I ask you something, or if you ask me something, a lot of the times what happens is, and what happens is when they look away is that they are thinking. So if they're not avoiding eye contact, they just need a moment to think. It's not that, so when they look away, don't continue talking. Just give them that moment. They might only need 1 or 2 seconds to think. And then they'll look back at you and they'll give you a response, the answer that you want, right? So just when they look away, just hold on, just pause. And then when they look back, continue, right? Of course, if possible, give them advance warning. So if there's a meeting next week on Wednesday, tell them early, tell them by Monday, preferably tell them 1 week before. So if today is Wednesday, today is Friday. So if today is Friday and you have a meeting next Friday, tell them today, we have a meeting next Friday. It's at 11 a.m. We hope that you can come and join us, right? So if you tell them beforehand, it's better than on Friday morning, you go to their desk and then you tell them, we have a meeting in 1 hour. Can you please come? And because they are doing something, they get very flustered. They are very anxious. They don't know what to do. What do they need to prepare? Do they need to bring anything? Do they need to say anything? So they don't know. And because all of these doubts are there, they may panic. And when they are at a meeting, because they are panicking so much, they can't think. And if they can't think, they can't give you their best ideas. So give them advance warning, as much advance as possible. And finally, I feel this is the number one thing. If you can do this, when you talk to them, one topic at a time. Okay, just talk about one thing, finish it, and then we talk about something else. So I have a number of extrovert friends. What they tend to do is when they'll talk about something, and then suddenly they'll talk about something else. And I cannot keep up with that because I feel that we haven't finished talking about the first thing. Now we are talking about the second thing. What about the first thing? We haven't finished it yet. Are we going to finish it, or is this just going to be left hanging? So try to minimize this doubt, right? So if they don't have the doubt, they'll be able to think better, give you better ideas, right? So so if you want to take a screenshot, this might be quite useful. So maybe this is something you can take a screenshot of, right? These are the 10 tips that I have on interacting with introverts. So especially if you're an extrovert. If you are an introvert, maybe if you take these 10 tips and you show it to your extrovert friends, your colleagues, your bosses, your family members, maybe it will help them to understand you better. So it's not just one way, it has to be two ways. We have to work together because introverts need the extroverts, extroverts need the introverts. And so we come to the more or less the last part, the simple systems. Right. So one simple system I can recommend is the 1 minute rule. If you have a meeting, you have a lot of people, everybody gets to speak for 1 minute. Right. So you'll go around each 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, and so on. So everyone gets to speak for 1 minute. Extroverts can only speak for 1 minute. Introverts have to speak for 1 minute. Think of it that way. So the extroverts are not the ones who are talking all the time. The introverts get an opportunity to give out their ideas. Right. So this is part of a system. It's not the entire system, but it will help. If you want your introverts to speak up, tell them in advance. Oh, okay, at this meeting, everyone needs to speak for 1 minute. So while you're in a meeting, take notes, write it down, and at the end of the meeting, we will ask questions. We will ask you to share your thoughts. Tell them in advance. Don't just suddenly ask them, right? Give them a little bit of warning and tell them that you are going to ask them questions later so they can prepare. And if they are prepared, they are more willing to give you what you want. Second is the two-way communication. So what you see here is like a suggestion box. So people can put their suggestions inside. Ask them, how can I improve things in a workplace? And the introverts may tell you, oh, the lights are a little bit too bright. Can we have fewer lights? Or it's very noisy in this area. Is it possible to have partitions, to have walls? Is it possible to have more chairs so that we can sit in a different part of the office? Ask them for ideas. And most of the time, they will give you the idea, right? So make sure it's anonymous, right? So the box is closed, so you don't know who gave the idea. So if it's anonymous and you don't know I'm the one who's giving the idea, I'm usually more willing to give you ideas because I'm not so shy about giving you the ideas, right? So help your introverts. Make it easier for them to communicate with you. Ask them what they want. And this one I find very useful for companies. It's called the 3-day gap. So for example, on Monday, you have your meeting. Maybe your meeting has 10 people. You do the 1 minute rule. Everyone gets to say a little bit, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. And then you tell them, okay, now we are going to you're going to go back and think about what we did in this meeting. On Thursday morning, you can book a slot with me. So let's say you are the boss, you are the CEO, or you are the manager. You can book a slot with me, 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Come to my office on Monday morning. So maybe this person will come at 9 o'clock. This person comes at 9:15. This person comes at 9:30. So they book with you. Not you don't decide who comes to you. They decide what time they want to come to you. So they will book the slot with you. Say, oh, okay, I'm going to come to you at 9:30. And at 9:30, they come to you. They have 15 minutes to tell you what they think. So this is open to everyone, not just introverts. Extroverts can come, introverts can come. But what's happening here is that the introverts will feel safer because they are speaking to you one-on-one and you are listening to them. Remember, introverts like one-on-one, tend to prefer one-on-one to large groups. So if they can give you their ideas one-on-one, they will feel a little bit safer than if they were to give their ideas in a large group. Right? So make this space for them. Let them book the appointment with you 3 days later so they have time to think. And usually what you will see is they can come up with very, very good ideas. So these are some things that perhaps you can try. Right, so we are almost out of time. It's almost 12. So if you would like to speak to me about my book, about the courses the training that I do for companies, or anything else, anything about introverts, about questions that you have, you could perhaps contact me here. So my name is Remus, and my surname is Zhong, Z-H-O-N-G. So R-E-M-U-S, Z-H-O-N-G. In fact, if you just go to Google and search my name, I'm basically the only person where the name comes up. No one else has my name. Okay, so if you were to go to these places, I think that you can find me there. Okay, so yes. So if you have any questions, do we have time for questions?
Sure. Yep. If any question, you can put it on the Q&A, and then we will answer you accordingly.
Okay.
Anyone have any
Oh,
question?
I think it's in the chat. I think it's in the chat group.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, I think it's in the chat. Oh yes, okay. I see something. Sophia, I'm not sure whether I. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Anyone has any questions? Yes, I've seen what you have typed there. So perhaps we can get in touch later on to talk about that.
Yeah.
And yes, so, well, if there are no questions,
Okay.
or maybe we are all introverts. All the introverts don't dare to ask questions. I'm not sure.
I think that's a good topic that actually enlighten us on how introverts behave. Yeah.
Thank you. So,
if there's
well,
no question, then I would probably okay. So this will be our upcoming webinar for next week, which is the human's perspective of innovation. So do sign up and join us for next week webinar. Same thing, Cambodia time, 10 to 12. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Remus, for your well-organized speech.
thank you
I would
very
say
much.
that he has actually put a lot of insights to us on introverts, and I think we have to view it in a different perspective now.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you
very much.
everyone.
So if there's
Okun
no,
drop niak fail krawi.
okay, thank you all. We will end the webinar here. Okay, thank you very much. We'll keep in touch.
Sure.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
I will end here. Thank you.